Hello, this is Ezekiel Dasho, and it's Halloween. And in the Halloween spirit, I'm going to draw this skull of a saint. Mwahaha. Very spooky, but also very good drawing practice. So, we're going to take a quick look at what we've got here. This is apparently the skull of Saint Wenceslas, and um, I think anytime's a good time to practice drawing um, anatomy and it's always a good way to up your skills, and this is going to be a great way to for people who especially have not done skull before to have sort of an entrance into some basic anatomy about the face, and at least if not in terminology, at least in understanding it visually. Just going to quickly start by roughly sketching the top, and we see that this line down the middle, kind of, if you imagine a sort of, well, why imagine it? Let's just slightly draw it. Let's kind of the middle point there, and get the pointed skull a little bit up to top ridge, and that middle point will help us get some of the symmetry as we construct the rest of the skull. It's very similar to drawing a face, and in some ways it's a lot easier. You don't have to worry about lifelike eyes and an accurate nose and lips and things like that. And we're not, most of us, those of us who aren't necromancers, are not very accustomed to viewing the human skull. We see it once in a while, kind of have it in the background of our mind, like what it looks like and stuff. But it's not like a nose or eyes or things that we see every day, that if they're incorrect, it'll just pop out right away. So there's a little bit of forgiveness. It's an organic form, and if things aren't perfectly straight here and there, it's okay. The main thing is trying to stay accurate as you can as you go. And so I've gotten down to the chin here, and as with my jack-o'-lantern drawing, I want to stay accurate and true to life, but I also want to keep it moving along. See, this jawbone here goes over here. And so I'm going to try to do it relatively quickly without sacrificing the look, the accuracy, the accuracy, and so forth. So here we've got some teeth, the bitter teeth of the saint. He must have eaten too much candy. Very spooky. And then you can see already mine's just a little bit inaccurate there, but keep rolling with it. And not only was candy very popular in St. Wenceslas's day, so was not brushing and not flossing. So he had a sort of double whammy, a spooky double whammy. Okay, so got some of these ridges where it looks like there's like decay, or either from all the candy or from the years that the skull has been weathered. Let's see, got this here near the jawline here, quite a bit of darkness. I chose this picture not because it's a saint, but I just thought it was a cool, creepy detail. But because it has some contrast, but not too much. If you go looking for skull pictures on like the Wiki Commons or whatever site you're using, what I saw was a lot of pictures that are either there's so much contrast because they want to look really spooky, or they're very clinical, and you can see every single bone and like clear detail, like it's like very white. And I wanted something that has a little bit of both, so a little contrast, but not, not in it too much to the point where it's ridiculous. And um, yeah, so that's kind of why I chose this picture. It's pretty good. It's an older photograph, and it has some of that veneer to it. So if you kind of squint your eyes here, you can see the shadows a little more clearly. And got this shape here. I want to keep that. And I've got this shape here, this ridge kind of thing. So let's keep building it up. And we get this nose. Let's do this. An easy way to start, binding it and forming your boundaries is just using these horizontals here that we're building up. And, similar to the pumpkin and other natural shapes that we've done, there's a little bit of jaggedness, a little bit of, jaggedness is, I think, a good description of how some of the stuff looks within the bone fragmenty area, cartilage fragments, whatever they are. Because the cartilage is since decayed, and now we're left with the bone fragments. And some of these points are almost better understood by using the negative space. So rather than drawing the solid black shape here, I'm kind of looking at the white shape and making sure that that's kind of the right shape. So I'm trying to keep an eye on both at the same time, and that way you won't have one that's going in one direction and the other that's going in the other. And this could be a little darker here, but we can focus on darkening up the skull there a little bit later, just so long as we don't lose this here where we see at the top of the nose inside there's this thin bit of darkness. And it's a little bit darker than the surrounding area there. So we've got that, and let's keep moving it along. As they say, brevity is the soul of, as Polonius was heard to remark, brevity is the soul of ... My silly jokes aside, let's keep on keeping on here. So yeah, you can see on the upper right of the nose, you've got this area here. Squint your eyes a little bit. It almost looks like a bow from a bow and arrow or something. There's this dark shadow shape, and you want to maintain a little bit of that and keep that. That will help maintain the depth and the lighting angle and all that stuff. So let's get the eyes going. Let's see, they're pretty big, the eye sockets. And I think there are a couple ways to approach them. I'm going to draw them in very lightly so that I have a little bit of leeway to make corrections as I go, if need be. And so we've got that, and then I got this darker area here. Just very lightly using the broad side of my pencil to Get some of that area shaded in. And we can come back to this and darken it up a little bit. So almost symmetrically across, we'll treat it, rather symmetrically. We will do the same process here for the other eye. Keeping these distances here relatively similar. Might need to widen them up or make them a little bigger at the end. Maybe not. I mean, I'm not going to display the photograph next to the completed picture here. So I'm not going to worry about people, picking apart every little detail I've done for accuracy. And if it looks good and it looks like a skull, I'm going to say rock and roll and go on to the next one. But I am trying to be as real as I can within the time constraints. I'm not trying to cut corners or anything like that, or sacrifice, process for an easy way out or anything like that. It's just that sometimes you can get very, very caught up in the details, and as I said in my pumpkin video, the devil can reside in those details. And I definitely get sympathy for the details, get lost in those details a lot of times myself. But let's keep it moving along here. And okay, so let's get some shading happening in the rest of the skull. We see these ridges here. Those are going to stay darker. And looking at the photograph on this side of the skull, we can see there's this really quite bright, it's not quite a circle, it almost looks like a candy corn, like a upside down candy corn, or right side up, the flat side down candy corn. We'll just kind of block that out a little bit. We also can see that there's a lighter area here, and it almost continues down like that. And then when the light hits this edge here, this corner ridge, it's toast. This terminator here. And definitely one of the reasons I liked this picture when I saw it is because of how well done that terminator line is. I don't know if that's intentional, or I like to think it is. I like to think photographers know what they're doing. Even though most of the times they have no freaking idea what they're doing when it comes to taking pictures. Anybody who draws and looks at photographs can kind of see, like, oh my gosh, they just have no, like, they take pictures without any respect for the light, without like any, I could go on and on and on about. It's a good photographer is hard to find. Especially online these days, since everybody has a phone. There's just so much muck to wade through on your way to finding a good photograph. It was better back in the olden days when people who were photographers had to like have cameras and equipment and expertise and stuff. And so they would like practice and they would know what they were doing. And nowadays it's like any idiot with a cell phone thinks that they're freaking an artistic photographer. And so a lot of the pictures you find online just have no concept of, like, they're not good source materials for drawings. Like, they're too washed out, they're too, there's a filter on them that makes the information impossible to see, So when you're choosing your own source material online, I mean, I would just be mindful of, like, just look around for a while, because you'll start to really notice like what is good for you and like what you're after in drawing. And you're looking for something that has the information to act as a viable source for your art. Then you don't want to choose just the first thing you come across. So we're shading it up. We're bringing it into the home stretch here, and I'm just going to get some tones down in the different areas, and then we'll go and darken them up a little more and get the depth in there a little bit. So it's got off on a little bit of a tangent there, but the way I'm kind of practicing it, that just, the drawing becomes something that you can just do without really having to think about it while you talk about something else. And that gives it sort of this natural, innate feeling. And so it's almost just like an instinctive kind of thing that you're doing. So, well, let's find some dark spots and get in there and press down a little harder and do some of the circular motion here to so it's time to draw some shadows. And inside this eye socket, there are some areas that are kind of like wavy, and then you've got this shadow here that's very sharp and dark. These combinations of these shadows are important because they're going to make the skull look like it's a bone and not, made out of cloth or something softer. Or there are hard edges and there are jagged edges, but just like drawing anything else, it's just a matter of staying true to what you see and kind of drawing one line at a time, I guess. I mean, I don't really want to say drawing lines too much, but we're shading them in there. And so I've got my form done and I'm pretty happy with it. And now I just want to, very similar to all the other videos we've been doing on my channel, and we're definitely getting to that point. Usually I mention it when we're making a video, and I mention that point as we get there. It's like kind of that point when you've got everything built and you can keep going for hours and take it in whatever direction you want. And we're at that point where it's just a matter of how much time you want to put into it. And I definitely want to get the darkness pressed in a little more, so I'll go in another direction with this cross hatching here. See some of these ridges, and I definitely want to get those defined as the light is coming from the sort of upper left this way. Some of these teeth ridges, as they go across, change, the shadows sort of change direction. It's kind of subtle, but it'll help make everything feel correct to your eye. Man, St. Wenceslas really had a big front tooth. I wonder if he was like, I don't know. I wonder if he, I wonder if he talked with a whistle or anything. Maybe that's why they called him Wenceslas. Maybe every time he said his name, he was like, Wenceslas. Maybe. This is so mean. Maybe as a joke, when he went and took his holy orders, his father who was in charge, his I don't know what that would be, his abbot at his monastery or something. He's like, okay, your saint's name is Wenceslas, just because it made all the other monks smile a little bit. And I like to think he'd be a good sport about it. He'd be like, I love it. I don't really know much about St. Wenceslas. I think there's a Christmas carol. I would have to look it up. I think I'm going to have to do a little post-drawing Google searching about it to round out my understanding of what I've just done. Well, there are these little shadows and stuff in here that are very, very... They seem small, but they have a really big impact on whether or not the skull looks real to the eye. So they're, not to belabor the point too much, but some of them are very important. And you definitely want to get them right, or and by right I mean I guess I mean tonally and form too, but definitely tonally. It's like this area here needs to be darker, and this area here also needs to be darker. That's kind of the process, just going through and looking and periodically stepping back, and I need to do that now. Just take a step back and see what I've got going here. Kind of work on this dark shape here a little bit more. Looking for any areas that seem too bleached out or too, muddled together because the contrast isn't high enough. And so like when in this area here, to get that to pop a little more, I need to just darken up the section that's darker. It's kind of help it retain that separateness from the piece that's in front of it. So these eye sockets here, it's amazing how big they are. Maybe St. Wenceslas was a really good seer. So there's lots of texture in here, like almost this marbled texture. I'm not going to get too far into that, I think, for my picture. I think I'm going to just finish shading up a couple of bits and definitely want this section here to be darker, as well as this section here. These are some of the darkest areas on the photograph, and it's going to help the skull look like it's lit by angle, the light at the angle that it is. And let's bring some of the darkness here. So in the interest of getting this this candy corn light here to pop a little bit, definitely going to contrast the areas around it a little bit more. And it's a fun drawing because, it offers you a lot of different options to play with in terms of shading. All the little bits of marbling and man, it's almost impossible not to just sit here contemplating my own mortality while I draw a skull. Bringing it back to Hamlet. Let's see. I'll take a step back and see if I've got this to a point where I'm happy with it and can post it. It kind of benefits from all these little shading squiggles. So I will post the link to the photograph it'll either be at the end credits. I'll try to remember to put it on the notes for the show. And I hope you have as much fun with this one as I did. This was a great exercise and definitely very, very helpful for practicing drawing portraits and stuff. It may not seem like it at the moment, but I already know that I'm coming away from drawing this picture with a deeper understanding of a skull.